Today, we're going to break down the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, a really complex story about money, power, and some truly horrific crimes. And right at the very center of it all is a private island, a place that was made to look like paradise, but as we'll see, it was hiding a terrible secret. Let's start right there. So, let's set the scene. The year is 1998, and we're in the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is where Epstein buys a private island called Little St. James. It's about 75 acres, and from the outside, it was the picture of an exclusive tropical escape. And he really spared no expense. He built this huge, sprawling compound. We're talking a massive luxury mansion, several guest villas, a couple of swimming pools, and of course, a helipad to fly in his guests. The whole point was to scream wealth and exclusivity, the perfect hideaway for the world's most powerful people. But that's just the surface. For the locals, people living on the other nearby islands, this place had a different name, a really chilling nickname. And look, this wasn't just some rumor. It was a sign that something deeply wrong was happening there, hidden in plain sight. So, who was the guy who owned this island of secrets? I mean, to really get what happened there, you have to first try and understand the very strange and mysterious rise of Jeffrey Epstein himself. And this is maybe the biggest mystery of all. Epstein starts his career as a high school math teacher in Brooklyn. And then, somehow, and the details are still really murky, he completely transforms into this mega-wealthy financial advisor to billionaires. It's a leap that, to this day, has never been fully explained. And with that kind of money came an unbelievable amount of influence. His social circle wasn't just rich people. It was the most powerful people on the planet. We're talking former U.S. presidents, world leaders, the biggest names in business, famous celebrities. This powerful network is absolutely central to the whole story. Okay, so let's get into how the horrible things that happened on that island were actually set up, because this wasn't random. Investigators uncovered what they called a systematic, highly organized criminal operation. The whole thing starts to crack open in 2005. And it doesn't start on the island, but in Palm Beach, Florida. It all began with a single police complaint filed by the parents of a 14-year-old girl. And that one complaint was the thread that would eventually unravel everything. So as the police started talking to that first girl, she gave them the names of other girls. And each one of those girls named more. Investigators realized pretty quickly they weren't dealing with a one-off crime. This was a structured trafficking ring, a methodical, repeatable system of abuse. And here's how that system allegedly worked. First, they would target young girls, often from poor or unstable homes. They'd lure them in with promises of money for giving massages, which would then lead to sexual assault. And then, here's the truly twisted part, they would offer the girls extra cash to go out and recruit their own friends and classmates. It was basically a pyramid scheme of abuse, turning victims into recruiters. So by 2006, federal investigators have this huge case. They've identified dozens of victims. You'd think justice was just around the corner, right? Well, what happened next completely derailed the whole thing for more than a decade. Just look at this timeline of the key legal events. You see the investigation kicking off in 05 and 06, but then there's this huge gap. Nothing happens for years, until he's arrested again in 2019. That gap? Well, the key to understanding it is what happened in 2008. In 2008, a secret plea deal was made. Now, keep in mind, he was facing serious federal charges that could have meant life in prison. But instead, he pleaded guilty to some much lesser state charges and got this incredibly light sentence. He barely served any real time, and even then, it was under very special conditions. And the most devastating part of this deal was how secret it was. The federal government signed off on it, but, and this is so important, many of the victims and their families were never even told it was happening. They were completely cut out of the process, denied their chance for justice. So years go by. But thanks to incredible investigative journalism and a lot of public pressure, the story just wouldn't go away. Eventually, the case was reopened, and that led to this dramatic final chapter that honestly left us with way more questions than answers. So in July of 2019, it finally happens, the moment so many people had been waiting for.
Epstein is arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges. It really looked like a public trial was finally going to happen, a trial that could have exposed his entire operation and everyone involved. But that trial never happened. Just a little over a month after he was arrested, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at a high-security federal jail. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide. Now, his death immediately set off a firestorm of suspicion. And it's because there was this cascade of bizarre security failures that all happened at the same time. Surveillance cameras in his unit were reportedly malfunctioning. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him had allegedly fallen asleep. And he was left alone in his cell, which broke protocol. Because he died before he could stand trial, the full truth about his crimes and his network might never come out in a courtroom. Even today, a huge number of documents related to his case are still sealed, leaving all these critical questions unanswered about who knew what was going on. And that brings us to the final, haunting question that still hangs over this entire scandal. With no trial, no public testimony, and that long list of powerful friends and associates, the death of Jeffrey Epstein left the whole world wondering not just how he died, but who exactly was protected when he did.